Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a M-A-R-K. And as you should know by now, we have to speak in code because of YT's algorithms in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that he is speaking of the elite rulers of the planet right now, who are of the nation of the Edomites, or the so-called white people, such as the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, DuPonts, Gettys, Merovingians, you name it. And that M-A-R-K is the M-I-C-R-O-C-H-I-P-I-M-P-L-A-N-T, that Charagma, the M-O-B, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the Magneto, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And in this video, I'll be going through two articles on RT.com. The first titled, First Ever Nationwide Lockdown for the Unbitten is on the cards, and the second titled, Russia Set to Implement Some of the World's Toughest C-19 Restrictions to show that everything that's going on right now with the situation, as we'll call it, is just the jump-off point, the catalyst towards the eventual mandatory implementation of the Charagma, whereas it says in verse 17 that no man might buy or sell save he that had the Magneto. And with everything we're seeing going on as a result of the situation, it's psychologically and subconsciously preparing you people for that eventuality. Because as we've been seeing with the lockdowns in place and with these new mandates coming out, people that haven't received the juice aren't able to enter into certain establishments unless they have proof that they've been bitten or have a negative C-19 test. And when that MOTB is mandatorily implemented, it's going to be no different. You won't be able to go to certain stores, buy or sell, get a job, travel abroad, or do anything without showing that you have the MOB. And what else has the situation led to? A breakdown in the supply chain, which has led to economic downturns all across the planet. Talks for a need of a digital cryptocurrency, those CBDCs, those central bank digital currencies. The list goes on and on. This is all playing into the bigger GREATRESET, the fourth industrial revolution, this digitalized, tracked, and monitored society that the elites want to set up to where everybody has the MOTB in them, and they won't be able to make as much as a turn to the left or right without the elites knowing exactly what you're doing. And hey, as we get closer and closer to this mandatory implementation, these things are only going to ramp up. Besides what we're about to read about with what's coming to Austria and Russia, look at what's going on over in the United States of America right now. You've got Biden talking about implementing that new mandate by January 4th, to where if businesses that have over 100 people don't show that their employees have been juiced, that they can start receiving penalties and fines. And also in that 400 and something page document dealing with those new mandates, it's mentioned that they wanted to not just be companies with 100 or more employees. They wanted to spread to pretty much every business out there in the public and the private sector. And also, you had one of the people in Biden's administration say the supply chain disruption won't truly come to an end until every American has been juiced. They're creating that two-tiered society between the juiced and the unjuiced, and they're going to make it so strict out here and draconian to where the people that have had the juice will look at those without the juice as a social pariah in society. and the problem and people that need to be dealt with. And then, of course, you've heard about the quarantine camps getting built in places like Canada and Australia for those that haven't had the juice. All this is the stepping stones towards that NW0 and the MOTB. With all the pieces set in place due to the situation, the C-19, once they implement that MOTB, it'll be an easy transition over. Again, if you don't have the MOTB, you won't be able to buy or sell, get a job, travel abroad, or do anything, and you'll be seen as a social pariah, a menace, somebody that has to be dealt with, somebody that's holding society back. And as it says up in verse 15, the ultimate penalty to come for those that don't get the MOTB is, and he, that he again referring to the elites that want to cause all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive the Magneto. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. The image of the beast being the financial, political, and military aspects of the last leg of the fourth beast that we're living in right now. Those iron toes mixed with miry clay in Daniel chapter 2. The reincarnated Roman Empire, the NATO-EU alliance that the U.S. is a part of, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, and best believe that the juice and eventually the MOTB are a major aspect of the image of the beast, should be killed. So hey, we're going to come to a time to where people that don't want to get down with the system and get the Magneto will be faced with being put to death. Hey, we're living in some very serious times, Akim, where we're going to have to put 144% faith in Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai to get us through these terrible times of Jacob's trouble to come. But now let's get into these articles on RT.com. Again, first ever nationwide lockdown for the unborderlined is on the cards. On Sunday, Austria may become the first country in the world to impose a lockdown on just the unborderlined among its population. Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg said a final decision will be made over the weekend. The Austrian government will make a determination on the two-tier lockdown system on Sunday, Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg said on Friday. He added that the decision will be made following meetings with the governors of Austria's 9 provinces. Upper Austrian Governor Thomas Stelzer has already sought permission from the government to lock down his province from Monday onwards. The area is currently recording more cases of the Krispy Kreme 19 than any other province, a situation Stelzer described as dramatic, according to the Austrian press agency. The idea of a nationwide lockdown exclusively targeting the unborderlined was first floated by the government in September and designed to enter effect when 30% of ICU beds became occupied by Krispy Kreme patients. That number currently stands at just over 20% and rising. Speaking at a press conference on Thursday, Schallenberg was clear about how restricted the lockdown would be for the unborderlined. One cannot leave one's home unless one is going to work, shopping for essentials, stretching one's legs, namely exactly what we all had to suffer through after Slovakia. Namely exactly what we all had to suffer through in 2020, he stated. And so people's movements being heavily restricted if they can't show that they've got the borderline, that they may neither buy nor sell, travel abroad, get a job, do anything, save he that has the borderline now and the Magneto tomorrow. And like I said earlier, as we get closer and closer to the mandatory implementation of the MOTB, these mandates, restrictions, and lockdowns are only going to become more draconian. It literally said that one cannot leave one's home unless they're going to work. Hey, and with mandates coming out saying if people haven't been borderlined or can't show a negative test, then they've got to leave that job. So that job situation is about to become much more hectic. Shopping for essentials, but who knows for how long before all these businesses say that in order to come there, you have to have the borderline. You get the point. Some 3.1 million Austrians, around 35% of the population, are not fully borderlined. The country's borderline rate is one of the lowest in Europe, and Schellenberg described the lackluster TAB take-up as shameful. Should the governor in Vienna go ahead with the lockdown plan, Austria would be the only country in the world to impose a lockdown solely on the unborderlined. Other countries have used similarly heavy-handed methods to force compliance with the TAB. However, in the U.S., the Biden administration has pressed private employers to fire staff who refuse the borderline. So-called borderline passports are commonplace throughout Europe for entering bars, restaurants, and entertainment venues, places that you buy and sell. And in New Zealand, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has explicitly backed a two-tier system of freedom for the borderline and restrictions for the unborderlined. They're pretty much putting the game plan right in your face. And best believe that these government officials and other higher-ups in society rub shoulders with the elites and are all on board with this NW0, that fourth industrial revolution, the GREATRESET. Austria's situation-related restrictions are opposed in the national parliament by the right-wing Freedom Party and locally by the newly formed People, Freedom, Rights Party, which is all vain and futile at the end of the day. It's all biblical prophecy for these systems to be set in place and for that eventual mandatory implementation of the MOB. Nothing will happen to avert these prophecies from coming to their fulfillment. As it says in Isaiah 55, verse 11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a magneto in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now let's go to my second article. Russia set to implement some of the world's toughest Krispy Kreme 1.9 restrictions. What do you have there? A digital QR code. Russia could be set to introduce some of the toughest Krispy Kreme restrictions in the world, including a sweeping digital QR code mandate for adults if a draft law is passed by the country's parliament. The proposed law would require QR code borderline passes to enter stores, buying and selling, cultural venues, and cafes until June 1st, 2022, but would not come into full effect until February. Realizing that our citizens need to be given the necessary time to get borderlined and draw up the necessary documents for those who do not have them, the bill establishes a transitional period. The full use of certificates would enter into force on February 1st, 2022, Deputy Prime Minister Tatiana Golikova said on Friday. Until then, unborderlined citizens would have an alternative way to enter venues by showing a negative PCR test, but only having severe medical conditions would enable one to bypass the mandate starting from February. And they're phasing out those negative PCR tests as well. And eventually they're going to phase out those paper borderline cards to show that you've gotten the bite. They're going to move towards these digital QR code tests, and eventually they're going to phase that out. And what do you think is going to be the next step? Having that magneto in you to show that you've got that you don't have the borderline. The QR code pass would be required for many public places as well as public transportation, but not for grocery stores for now. I read an article a couple of months ago where it said that over in somewhere in California, you had some people on the city council boards talking about restricting people going to grocery stores if they can't show that they've gotten borderlined. Hey, all these different draconian measures to pressure the people to get the borderline now and the Magneto tomorrow are all on the books. It's just a matter of time to where they're fully implemented and enforced. Shops and sell necessities and pharmacies. The passes will also be required for travel by rail and for long distance and international flights, that they may neither buy nor sell, get a job, travel abroad, or do anything, save he that was conditioned to get the borderline now so he can more easily get the Magneto tomorrow. And those that don't want to get down with it will eventually be faced with being put to death. Until the law takes effect, rail operators and air carriers can require proof of a negative PCR test. According to Galikova, the QR passes will certify not only borderline against the Krispy Kreme, but also confirmation of recovery and therefore natural immunity or a medical exemption. She said the document would be secure and hack-proof. And don't fall for the okie doke in believing that these different systems and digital documents are hack-proof. Over in Europe recently, there was a big controversy about how some healthcare workers, as well as other people, were able to hack into these different governments' Krispy Kreme databases and get codes that people could download online to show that they've been borderlined. One of the codes actually had Emmanuel Macron's borderline code, as well as his name and birth date on it. And another code that people were able to download online had Hitler's name and birth date on it. And this was all by design to be fallible, so the powers that be could eventually roll out that Magneto, the MOB, the MICROCHIMPLANT. Look, these paper passports aren't working. These QR codes aren't working. How about this Magneto? And also, we could link it in with these CBDCs, these central bank digital currencies. Regional governments will have the final say on whether to require QR code passes at all in their jurisdictions and at which venues, aside from those specified above. But you get the point. But hey, as you sincere Akim can see, with each passing day, we're getting closer and closer to the mandatory implementation of the Magneto. So now more than ever, you should have all faith in Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai and have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you possibly can to have that protective hedge of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai over you to keep you from that hour of temptation, which is about to come onto the entire world to try these people. And you want to be found worthy and be saved and not be a part of that Revelation chapter 14 verses 9 to 10 crowd that is going to get burned up by that fire and brimstone or those nuclear missiles, as well as the laser beams from the chariot for taking the Magneto. But I'm going to leave it off with this clip I've used in a previous video from the brother GMS Watchman 4's YouTube channel, and you can read the title.
Smart technology that an increasing number of people in Sweden are using is chip implant under the skin, where you can store smart information. Let me show you. I have a chip implant sitting right here in my arm, and when I touch it with my phone, it unlocks my European COVID passport. You can even have a chip implant that measures your body temperature. I have one sitting right here myself.
Paper cards, negative PCR tests, QR codes today, that Magneto tomorrow. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.